I'm just going to dive in, if that's okay, with what was your first animated film, and like how did that come together?
Okay, it's called Lulu's Back in Town, and I basically just wanted to get over the stigma of being a filmmaker. So I dropped out of the art school in Vancouver, dropped out of Ryerson, landed at the Atlantic Filmmakers Cooperative, and it was so fantastic to just see all these people making films, very exciting times. And so then there was an animation studio down the hall. I asked if I could use it, and so Doomsday Studios was the name of the Ramona McDonald's animation studio. So I shot the film just with still photographs, my brother-in-law playing the piano. Just a little 2-minute film that I thought I'd just whip out and sweep away. So we'll just watch it and then we can talk about it after. It's 2 minutes, so you won't walk away from it because it'll be so short.
Gotta get my old tuxedo pressed. Gotta sew a button on my vest, 'cause tonight I've got to look my best. Lulu's back in town.
Or just swing it.
Gotta get a $50 somewhere. Gotta shine my shoes and slick my hair. Got to get myself a boutonniere. Lulu's back in town. You can tell all my pets, all my Harlem coquettes, Mr. Otis regrets that he won't be around. You can tell the mailman not to call. I ain't coming home until the fall, and I may not get back home at all. Lulu's back in town, yeah. Lulu's back in town, yeah. Lulu's back in town. Lulu's back in town.
That character is from a play called Dulce Woman from Grand Manan. And that was Captain Canada from that same play. On Argyle Street, the film co-op was on the second floor, and I had the studio on the fourth floor. And standing on the studio, you could see Citadel Hill. Anyway, I talked through this part because I don't like the way I kept repeating "oh yeah" at the end. So it was, like no budget. No, thank you. I used short ends. Other filmmakers had short ends of films, so I used those to shoot it. And didn't expect it to go anywhere. It was just going to be, that thing of getting the first film out of the way with. However, it ended up playing at the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C., and going to Toronto Film Festival and doing a cross-Canada tour of films from the Atlantic region. So you never know. And you can never, I guess, overestimate your own foolishness, Anyway, maybe put up the still next, Kenny, of the camera that it was shot on. This is Helen Hill with the animation camera. Now, NASCAD used to own it. Do they still own it? Does anyone know?
It's at AFCOOP.
It's at AFCOOP. Okay. And who? Oh, yeah. It's AFCOOP who owns it. Right. Are you shooting on it?
No, but I have played with it.
Okay. Yeah. So it's really old. It used to be, I think Henry Ornstein taught animation on it at NASCAD.
Wow.
Then it was bought by Ramona for Doomsday Studios, and then now it's great that it's back at AFCOOP. Okay, so I just wanted to say that, I guess I've said everything I want to say about that.
Actually, can you tell us just a bit about working with Helen?
Oh, yeah. She was a gem of a person. She just loved animation, and this is a 16 millimeter film animation camera, and she also shot in Super 8 films. So she's the type of person who, she went to the Ottawa Animation Festival, one of her films. The guy there said, listen, there's not a lot of work from women. get your friends together. So how does she handle it? She has a film bee, and so we're all shooting Super 8 films, and then I think we hand processed it, and then we were all coloring it and using things like a Super 8 is like that wide. It's extremely narrow, but you can actually do things that Helen knew, like paint it with fingernail polish that has glitter in it. And that shows up as these hexagonal shapes on the screen. So we had this film bee with everyone coloring their film and just having a great time with it. Anyway, she's very, very community-minded, wonderful, wonderful person. And she shot The Moody Brood later on.
Great, thank you. So you mentioned that the first film was just kind of getting over that hump of filmmaking. What's your most ambitious film then?
Are we following the script? Because I can. Oh yes, it's
Yes.
The Moody Brood. So we're going to take a look at the 4-minute trailer for The Moody Brood. I just wanted to make a film that was about a portrait of how can my 10 siblings all be so different when they come from the same basic root and the same socioeconomic background. And they're, weirdos in every direction, right? So then that was all it was going to be. But it became something bigger as people revealed their secrets. I was no longer able to just do my simple portrait. I had to get in there and look at the themes behind it all. So we'll look at the trailer.
Let me paint the backdrop. Nova Scotia is a small province in Canada. Antigonish is a small town in what the tourism department calls the Highland heart of Nova Scotia. Come meet my family. Mom and Dad, Pauline and Bernard Keating. And this is the cast they unleashed on the world. The instability of the first half of the 1900s affected our parents' generation. By the time the Second World War was over, it seemed everyone in Canada tried to model their family on this formula: a Christian community, a single family dwelling, a working father, a stay-at-home mother. But they didn't necessarily add up to the ideal functional family. Was our mother feeling betrayed when she went swimming that day? Of course, she'd just found out that she was pregnant again.
I went swimming in the ocean and apparently caused alarm to some people on the shore because I kept swimming and swimming and swimming. They could barely see my head, and they were deciding that they better launch the motorboat and go after me when I turned around and got a little bit bigger and bigger.
When I would see things getting rough, I'd just pull out. There would be too much for Mother to handle. And Dad was the only child. I don't think he ever really took on. Except that maybe around the end, when he would take the kids to Ship Harbor, it meant that he would have the family, but it was Mother's responsibility to look after it all, or in some cases, my responsibility. Mother, she was caught with all those kids.
I saw my mother being pregnant a lot. I saw how miserable it made her, and couldn't understand why they continued to have so many children. And the only answer I ever got was, well, the Catholic Church doesn't believe in birth control.
I think I was stressed out at a young age. When family members did show up and I didn't know who the hell they were. Like I remember one time, Rick was home with a girlfriend for Christmas, and I was convinced that she was my sister and he was her boyfriend.
I remember feeling all the time that you just weren't clean. Inside, outside, there's no way we could be clean enough.
Catholicism is a detriment to humanity. I think that it makes people live their lives shrouded in guilt. Dad was so religious, so Catholic, that I think that his Catholicism estranged him from a lot of his children when they started to commit mortal sins.
Shortly after I moved away from home, I started living with my boyfriend in a town near Antigonish. I felt I had to tell my parents before they heard the rumors about us. In my 20-year-old mind, I hoped my father would accept my common law relationship. Like my older siblings, I was writing my own script now. We were all waiting for Dad to come home from work. As soon as he came through the front door, I went by myself to tell him. I can't remember if he slapped me across the face, maybe not, but it felt like he did. He said I was no longer his daughter. He forbid me to see the family. I was crying and I ran upstairs to the bedroom that used to be mine. But as soon as I sat down on the bed, it hit me that this wasn't my home anymore, and it never could be again. So here's the final act. When I left home, I believed that I'd be starting with a clean slate, that I could write my own script. I now see that a lasting influence on my life has been that original cast of characters and our debut performance together.
So that film is 40 minutes actually, so it's very long. But what I started in 1990 and it took me to 99 before I got it made, mostly because the money just wasn't there and I needed to hire people to make it work. So yeah, and it ended up being on CBC News World, had a show called Rough Cuts. So then they financed it. I had a Canada Council grant, help from the Atlantic Filmmakers Co-op. Those kinds of things are what pieced it together.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us. That's amazing. Really powerful. So can you tell us about your use of animation in dramatic film?
Okay, I learned, I loved making that first film, that Lulu's Back in Town. I just loved the materiality of it and playing with the parts. And so then when I got, I had like that 2-minute film, a 3-minute film, was working on a 5-minute film when I applied for a grant from the Canada Council, not expecting to get it because I was such a newbie, but I got the grant, which was $8,000 to make a half-hour drama. And but because of constraints with shooting and everything, we didn't get all the scenes, or there were elements that just were missing. And so then I ended up using still photographs as I had used in my first film. So we'll look at the first. Are we showing one clip? Yeah, one clip. So we'll look at it, and then I'll tell you about it.
There is wheelgeese rolling around. 1 minute it's out, then the next is down. It's the same old story in the same old town. I could be trapped here all my life and wake up one morning as a farmer's wife in the same old town, watching that wheel.
There are 2 clips from this film.
Brenda, there you are. Yes, you didn't tell me you were going to the big city. When did you find out? I just heard from Gertie 2 minutes ago. Oh my God, I just told her a minute ago. I don't believe it. You got some nerve. Oh, she's so jealous. I wish I was going with you. Oh, listen, girl, I have to go. I mean, I just decided that it's time to snag in now and what are you going to be doing there? I don't know. Find a job. Do something better than selling suppos down at the store. I was thinking I'd take a course. I'm going to be nuts in Hoser without you around. Oh, no, listen, that's the way I felt. I mean, that's why I was alone, you know? You get out of here. This fiddle music's giving me hives. Oh, yeah, okay. Here, let's go to the horses. Stacking up hosiery in the 5 and dime. I can stare and retire if I go to my time. There must be something more for me to do. Well, I could be trapped here all my life and wake up one morning as a farmer's wife.
I think we can cut it there. Yeah, we can cut it there, I think. There's another clip too, but I don't know that we need to show it. I think the main thing is that when there was a story element that could be brought out more than with still photographs, and I would shoot black and white photographs and then hand tint them, and then like just do a dissolve from one to the next, and so several times in the film there are sequences. but maybe we can show the Lucille's Ball trailer, because again, lots of animation in it. You'll see other techniques too that are not traditional in it. It's a feature film made in 2013. It came out. So we'll look at that clip.
Sorry, I just think that people should, wait until they're married and parents have been making sex sinful and ugly for millennia. Why? So their daughters don't get pregnant. Now here we are in the era of unprecedented freedom. We have the pill.
Die right now, we're going to hell.
Some days I'm lost and questioning. Other days I have all the answers.
Lucy.
Dad, I'm just saying that when people get married, they can finally have sex. I'm gonna be a musician. Right. I write and I sing. And I'm looking to put together a band.
Yeah, I'm the singer.
Hold on here. The morning has no candle. The shivering sky. Jesus Christ, Dad!
But you throw your life away. Find someone who can help you figure it out.
It's a good thing you're not having any children.
Well, what's that supposed to mean?
Well, if you wanted kids, you would have married Casey.
Casey didn't want a wife with a career.
Well, then you made your choice.
I present Lucy.
You're beautiful. I'm a baby.
Yeah. So that one was the one that won the $100,000 services award. So we knew we were getting a studio and we could use it for 1 week. So we had enough money that we could rent it for the 2 weeks. But the actual storyline, because I wanted to go all over the world telling the story, the motorcycle ride is where she's sitting on the back of a motorcycle and the forest is going by. That's Africa and all kinds of locations. So we ended up buying little shots that were available through online markets for images. So those video clips and sometimes still images, the big cathedral. Where we put our money was to invest in the best rear screen projection system that was available. And so then we would project these slides like the big church against the screen, and then have the characters' silhouettes in front of it. Like, we did everything. You wouldn't believe how, I guess, innovative stylistically it was. But the animation, again, saved us because, movies, it takes usually like 28 days, 32 days, made for television movies that are very, formulaic. Maybe you could shoot in 20 days. We had 2 6-day weeks, so 12 days in that studio. So I lost 8 scenes, I think, that were in the script that had been cut down. The script had been cut down, cut back. And so how to recreate it was to shoot animation.
So you've mentioned the tactility of animation and animation as this kind of pragmatic support for the storytelling. What's your favorite thing about animation? What is it that you really like most about animation?
I love the way animation can take you outside of yourself and into another world. And it can create a whole fanciful, imaginative world. For those of you who were here for the last program, this, what was the last film of the program? About the year I get laid, or my year of dicks. And it's hilarious. But, you just see the transformation of all of the, she can't stand hearing her father talk about sex, so she rips her ear off and throws it against the wall. So you can do all of that stuff. You can have, like in Lucille's Ball, the pulsating vulva with her cowering inside. And you can you can bring it to another level, and you can also go into the subconscious. So we'll take a look at a clip from Foretold, and it's more the subconscious world that I was trying to evoke.
Some things are predictable, like the sun. It rises in the east, sets in the west. Oh.
Oh, yeah, I didn't give you very much of that, did I? Basically, creating another world. And that was a world about a dream that foretold a real-life event. And so I wanted from the very first to create that. It's interesting that I put that sun rises in the east and sets in the west. Oops, and it bounces back, so it gets a little laugh. So I learned early on that if you can get your audience smiling and laughing along with you, then you win them over early on. It's a good idea to throw some humor in at the very beginning. That's what I find. Then you've got the empathetic response and the audience is on board. With this particular film, I think I had a little grant to do it, but I didn't have a lot of money, and I was shooting in Newfoundland. They had the Filmmakers Cooperative in Newfoundland, NIFCO, Newfoundland Filmmakers Cooperative, Newfoundland Independent Filmmakers Cooperative. Anyway, NIFCO, yeah. It's a fantastic place, wonderful people. And so I talked them into having me there as a resident. And so I was there, but I didn't have any animation supplies and everything. And I wasn't on top of the game. Like what I've learned from this film, Foretold, it was the importance of being able to time out each segment and make sure that you shoot enough frames to be able to last throughout the narration. So I was short. And so it was slowed down more visually, which means you can see the granularity of it more. And so now in films ever since then, I'm much more conscientious about making sure that I've got enough material and don't need to slow it down.
Well, we've already seen an amazing range of animation techniques, and I think we're going to turn now to Don't Bring Lulu, which we will be screening in full on Saturday night in the adult portion program. And I just want to ask you about what techniques you used for shooting Don't Bring Lulu.
Okay, well, if we take a look at, I don't think I gave you a very long clip on this one. But anyway, yeah, why don't you just play what Kenny has been very helpful in making the clips a little longer. And there are two, so we'll look at them both back to back.
You can bring Rose with the turned up nose, but don't bring Lulu. Lulu always wants to do what the boys don't want her to. When she struts her stuff around, London Bridge is falling down.
Okay, that's one. And then we'll just watch this one too, I guess.
Lulu, don't bring Lulu.
I'll bring her myself. Yes, I will.
Yeah, so with that, rotoscoping is the technique of taking images of a person in a lot of different poses. And then you've got all those photographs. What we did was we photocopied, we printed them out and then cut them out, put them against a different background, colored the images. So when you see that Lulu smoking, she is actually rotoscoped. And the wonderful thing about living in Dawson City is that there are all these fantastic artists that come there. And Sharon Mirsky was one of those, and Sharon is here tonight. And she's sitting at the back. She came to Dawson and she gave us a workshop on rotoscoping technique. So, and then she very kindly gave us all a little manual on how to do it yourself. So we were working then with images of a man walking down the street. We each did segments of this guy, and then she showed us how, like, you can crumple paper and you can make a really nice effect from crumpling the image. And so that was one of the techniques that we used repeatedly in this. I say we, I'm going to show you some photographs of the camera setup, the lighting setup, and the team working on it. The other technique that I learned from another workshop that was done in Dawson City, Joel Penner came and did a workshop about using scanners. So the scanners, you know, ching, ching, it's a very slow process. What he did in the workshop was we put pieces of fruit there, ching, ching, and then changed the position of the fruit, ching, ching. And he does a lot of time lapse of decaying fruit, similar to, what's her name, Dawn George, who lives in Halifax. And the work she does, fantastic, amazing work. Anyway, so I wanted to do something like, there's a whole, most of this film, it's like from it was written in 1920. It's uplifting and exciting, and it's about those women who took risks, those, what do they call, flappers, going to parties, having sex, driving, smoking, doing all kinds of stuff that the Victorian era women were not allowed to do. And so, but then there is the dark side of the fact that what we're seeing happening around abortion rights and around all kinds of women's issues is that women are being repressed again. So I wanted to, yes, we have this wonderful party you've been invited to, but where are we now? So to change the tone a bit, I used the scanner, and that's when I did the scene with the 3 black witches in black sand, and then the hanger, appearing and being taken away. So I changed the technique a bit to bring more attention and had the music change. And it was all a big risk, and I don't know how it sits, with audiences, because then it lifts up again and we go into all the outrageousness that's happening at the party. So it's a risky movement. I just couldn't let the film be all fun. And we'll see how it sits. It's just starting to get out there. It's entered in festivals, and we'll see if it gets any play. Well, it will on Saturday.
Yes, come back Saturday and see
Yeah.
it. Did you want to show any stills?
Yeah, you've got some stills up there. So this is the wonderful editor I've been working with on many films, Annie Cairns, who's from Halifax. And she's worked at AFCOOP last year and worked for the Halifax Independent Film Festival. And what we had done was we set up an outdoor little room because we were shooting this film was 2 years ago called King COVID. You can see it on YouTube, I think it's, and it was on CBC Gem. And it's basically the pandemic from the virus's point of view. King COVID says, come on, you guys, you needed to be slowed down, and taught a few lessons, and that's why I came on the scene again. So it was a really fun 10-minute animated film. So the next slide is, okay, and that's me and with the camera. So you can see the setup is basically a camera that is a stills camera that has a video function that we don't use. We just use the, or rarely would use it. We just shoot thousands of frames with a remote so that we're not jiggling the camera. The camera is set up, we had 2 cameras set up for this King COVID shoot. There's lamps on both sides. And if you show the next slide, and the artwork is on the bottom on the table. Oh, that's me outside writing, okay. This is my little junkie house there in Dawson City. think I've got another picture of the camera setup, because we used one there. This is Saskia, who's a wonderful, delightful person to work with. She was 18 when we did this, and now she's all of 20, and just brilliant. And so we used a light table, so it's lit from underneath as well as the 2 lights. I'm seeing 3 lights actually. And then the camera way up top on the tripod and a remote control. So after all those frames are shot, we stick them all in a folder, we lasso them all so that they'll play as a continuous shot, and then we drop them into the edit program as a scene, as a shot. Do you have any more stills of that? I don't know if there's anything else. Oh yeah, that's my living room. So that's Saskia doing some work on the computer. And I think that's all you've got. If there's anything more, just put it up. I don't know. That's it.
Great, thank you. Nice living room. So in I want to talk about the kind of labor of animation. So in drama, you can have a shooting ratio of 30-1, so you shoot 30 times as much material as you actually use, and documentary, could be this mind-blowing, like 100-1. What is your shooting ratio for animated film?
Well, because it is labor intensive, the actual shooting, creating the artwork, it's probably, my experience, about 4-1. So I'll do tests and then know pretty well what we're going to do, and then shoot it once, maybe make a mistake and need to shoot it again, and use virtually everything. And it's helpful to be really well prepared to just do those, prepare the artwork, do the test, and then shoot it for real. Otherwise you're, for me, everybody says, oh, animation takes a long time. It doesn't need to. You don't need to be too precious about it, is my feeling. We shot King COVID was 10 minutes, and it took us 3 months. And Don't Bring Lulu, the same team, 2 years later, was 4 minutes, and it took 2 months to shoot it. So it's not that long. And fun. It's really fun. Yeah, I don't know if do I have it? Oh, yeah. No, I guess that's it.
I think we do have a really cool clip, though, of a particularly unexpected animation technique. So, do you want to tell me about that one? This is the Bring Lulu clip.
Yeah, we'll look at this. It's basically just who knew we were going to do this? Anyway, I'll play the clip.
You can bring flow, 'cause your dad's got dough, but don't bring Lulu.
So her dad's got dough, so of course we used dough and put the camera on a time lapse for 6 hours or something. And then, when she shrinks, it's because we would just reverse the shot. And we only had to do it twice. The test showed us what not to do, and then the real thing. So it's fun. I don't know how many of you make animated films, but if you don't make them yet, set up a camera and have fun.
Well, on that note then, do you have recommendations about how you get films financed?
Oh, yeah. Well, there's 2 ways to go, kind of art and industry. So the art is like Canada Council or provincial or territorial. In my case, Yukon territory is very generous with grants. It's always competitive. So, I think it's good to always have an application in there and see how it falls out, instead of having all of your eggs in one basket. If your project is bigger, like with King COVID, we had CBC, but there was a lot of paperwork and everything. So there's a producer. It's nice to have a producer, and the producer is the person who basically ensures that all the paperwork is in order, all the people get paid, all the contracts are there, all the images, because we made King COVID for CBC. I wanted a producer to guarantee that all of the shots were cleared, basically by an entertainment lawyer who said, yes, okay, I believe that you own the rights to all of this material. So nobody sues you later. But so that there's art and industry, and the industry part is more like when you're getting bigger money, like Telefilm Canada and Canada Media Fund, and having a broadcaster. And then you might have 10, 20-page contracts and all of that kind of thing. So it's farther away from the art. But it doesn't mean that artsy-fartsy people like me can't do it. We just need, it helps if we have a suit that we can hire that will get some money to be the producer. If people have specific interests in how to make animation or get them financed, I do have some documents that I can make available to you, and I brought my clipboard here to get your email address, and I can send you any of these documents. I can send you an example of a budget, a proposal. I think actually you've got a few things that you can put up there, and we can just talk through them there. Yeah, so like there's a budget for a film. What I did was I set up my own company years ago, Red Snapper Films, which is good because then people give you fish all the time. Anyway, and so what I did was I hired somebody as a tech advisor. Again, like whatever your weakness is, you can always sucker somebody else in to cover for you. So the tech advisor was great because then we could call him when the remote wasn't working. And then I was able to put in stuff that in the budget that meant that Red Snapper Films would cover something, and then I could pump up the budget. Okay, I don't know if I'm making sense. So for example, I could say I'm applying for $40,000, but my company is going to pay $5,000, put $5,000 in by saying we're using my office, my computer, my telephone, etc. Often what I used to do is with Canada Council grants is put in the cost of the rental of a computer. I'd find out from the Filmmakers Cooperative in Whitehorse and the Arts Center in Dawson City how much they would charge to rent a laptop. Oh, $300 a week. Okay, well, I'll need it for 300 and like let's say 6 weeks. So that's $1,800. So that buys me a laptop. So I've got the quotes there. Red Snapper buys the laptop and rents it to the production. I have a laptop. Smart. Too bad it wasn't my idea. It was somebody else. But anyway, stuff like that. Maybe we'll look at the next slide. Oh yeah, and again, like applying for grants, it really helps to keep the jury awake. It's a jury of peers, right? And so give them something visual. So nowadays it's more formalized. They call it a lookbook or whatever, a sizzle reel. But I'm not very good at shooting a reel. So I just gave them all these frames of all these possible textures and images that I might use. And that helped, I'm sure, to get the grant. And we'll look at the next one. Oh yeah, more images to help get a grant. And the next one. And so this would have been for Don't Bring Lulu. So I had a bit of a storyboard, very rudimentary, just where I had drawn on the actual lyrics for the song. But like you think it's a 4-minute song, 4-minute film, how much would you apply for? Well, instead of applying for $5,000, $10,000, please, if you don't mind, give me 12. I applied for $37,000 and I got it all. So really, like I just was on another jury. And again, the other jury members kept saying, I wish this person had applied for more money. The limit was $25,000. Go for the limit. The next slide. Oh, and that's just the second page of that storyboard. Anyway, just to give you an idea. I think, is that it, or is there anything else? If there's anything else, just throw it up there. Oh yeah, what this is. And again, if you're interested for animation that you want to do, I can email it to you. But it's just a log of, what we would do. Remind ourselves to pull the curtain so there's no natural light affecting the color temperature, that kind of thing. And record your tests. And then, is there another one? Post-production flow. Oh yeah, that just helped us, remember what we're supposed to do to make sure that we don't lose any material, that it's all organized. And the next one, if there is another, that might be it.
That's it.
That's it. Okay. All right.
Thank you. That's incredibly useful and very generous that you're willing to share that. Thank you so much. So I just have one more question, and then I'll hand it over to the audience. What are you planning next?
I'm going to, I resolved not to talk about this publicly because I'm scared to death of it. But basically, I wanted to do an autobiography, so I applied for many years to write an autobiographical book. And then after working with this team of Saskia and Annie, I decided, well, why don't and because the Moody Brood was so successful, it won lots of awards around the world. I just thought, why don't I try to make an animated autobiographical film? The other thing is that, like, I love working in short films, but you don't get a lot of attention internationally and at big festivals when you've got shorts. So a short feature is 70, 75 minutes. So I think I could have lived long enough that I can fill all of that time. So I just thought I'd try to do that. So I'm just going for easy money right now. I applied for 2 grants that took me 1 day to write both of them. And then that would just be I have 40 some years of journals, 45 or something years of journals in like 11 boxes that I want to get digitized, and with cross-referencing of these are the dreams, these are the lovers, these are the people I hate. Anyway, like, journals, right? And then I'd be able to pull all that stuff out and write the script. So it would be a 2-year project, maybe 3.
Fantastic. Okay, I'm really, really looking forward to this.
Oh, good. Do you have some money?
I wish. Okay, I am going to hand it over to the audience now. So if anyone has questions, please just put up your hand.
And
please don't be shy.
Well, she's going with the microphone. I just want to acknowledge Claire Henry is here. And Claire worked on City Survival when we were both young women in 1982. Doing the sound edit. She just gave up everything. I didn't have money to pay you, Claire, did I? And then we just worked on the sound edit.
I had a baby.
Yeah, you had 2 young.
This illness, MS.
Yeah, you
but
were.
I still worked on Lulu's film.
I know. And we went.
Inspiration you are.
Yeah, it was fantastic. Fantastic of you.
Any questions from the audience? Great.
I just want to know about things that you tried that weren't successful. Like, these are all your things that went well. Are there things that you tried that didn't go as well?
In animation or in film?
I don't know.
Yeah, I feel really bad about the films that I shot but didn't finish. So, for example, my son at one point when he was about 7 or 8 wanted to have a food fight. So we said, okay, we'll take you out to the country. You can throw your whatever. And so he and his few friends did it. Then after that, we would every summer have him and his team of 10 or 12 boys and girls have a no-rules weekend, and from one day to the next, they were allowed to fucking curse and fucking swear and give them hot objects and knives to play with, and here's an axe, and they'd have their food fight when the tide was high so they could jump in the water and wash off afterwards, and they'd camp out. And anyway, so we filmed it one year, and it was frustrating because it was always like the tail wagging the dog trying to get the money to make these things. So I talked ATV into giving us the development money, but then somehow after we made the demo, they just said, well, what we really want is, what about a film about men between the ages of 25 and 30 who don't leave their home, or they go back to home? And, it was a totally different film. And so then I shot a demo on that, and then they passed on it. And so that other film is still in a box in the shed. So maybe one day.
Thanks. Any other questions?
Hi, I was just wondering, it looks like you're using a lot of manual film techniques in everything I was seeing looked like it was being done, like looked feasible that you were doing it just right on the animation table. You're editing digitally. How much are you also doing using digital tools in your animation? Do you find it cuts?
We did. It's a really good question. We did when we did the Moody Brood, like, and that was 1999. We were doing the editing on that, and we were using a few special techniques, but it just didn't feel organic to me. We hired this guy who knew better. I would say, we want you to zoom in on this particular element and hold it there for 5 seconds, and he would start close and zoom out, and so I thought, well, let's get rid of the intermediary and just do it, so basically I don't use any digital effects or any add-ons or whatever you'd call them, or nothing. Like when Annie edits, she might slow something down a bit, speed something up, dissolves, fade in, fade out. Simple, but not a lot of special stuff. And I know, because some of you are animated filmmakers, and I admire what you can do digitally on computers, but that's not me. I like the cutouts and the dough rising and all that stuff.
Do we have any other questions?
I would like, it's not so much a question as the fact that, as Lulu was just saying, there was the there was the analog world for film production, and then there was a digital world. And wondering if there are any people here who felt that they lost their production because of the loss of analog here, or did that happen to you, Lulu?
Yeah, it's a good question. Like, I just feel like I was able to, fortunately, make the switch, but I'm still using a camera to shoot and not creating it on a computer. Yeah, so I don't think that but a lot of people got left behind. I mean, there's so many people who stopped being able to edit when it stopped being the Steenbeck flatbed editing tables with the 16 millimeter film, the 16 millimeter magnetic stripe, and had to keep them all sync and everything and hang them up. That was complicated stuff. But going digital, that's what lost them.
My business was to sink brushes.
Yeah, exactly, which was complicated.
I was just wondering, obviously AFCOOP is still doing well. It's still continuing along, which is great, because years ago, like the NFB and other places had funding that was available to women, had funding available for animation and that sort of thing. Is there, in terms of training, is there that much that's available to the average person? Because I know that there's film studies, there's courses people can take for a lot of money, but similar to AVCOOP, are there places where people can just simply go learn?
It's been 20 years now that I've been up north, so I was in Halifax for 20 years. But I'm damn sure that AFCOOP does a really good job still of having continuous workshops. And then other groups like this very film festival just had a workshop through the library, I believe, and the films are going to be shown during the festival. And I think there are lots of opportunities like that. Those film courses, like there's a network of filmmakers cooperatives all across the country. And it's just wonderful, the work that, the opportunities that are available. There's also a resurgence, and maybe it's only happening in the north, but in Dawson City, we have had a resurgence of us shooting on film and hand processing. One of my films has a credit saying, hand processed in bathrooms all around Dawson City. But like we're doing all this really exciting stuff. And there was a workshop last September where it was a call out to people from across Canada. The nearest from here was a guy named Scott from New Brunswick who came. There was a woman from Iqaluit, a woman from Victoria. Anyway, we had 10 or so filmmakers who came to Dawson, And they spent their first few days going out, finding natural plants, shooting tests and seeing which plants could process, eco-processing instead of using harmful chemicals. And they found just about every plant that they tried worked as a developer when mixed with whatever the other basic components were. And so then they shot all these wonderful films. And so at our last Dawson City Film Festival, which every year is Easter weekend in case anyone wants to drop in while you're in the neighborhood, we had a lot of films that were hand processed and eco-developed and workshops on that. So it's like record players. We're going back to another technology.
Are you the developer of eco-development?
I've never used it actually,
okay.
but I have certainly hand processed with the chemical developers and had the blisters on my arms to prove it because the gloves weren't long enough. So I think it's fantastic.
If people are interested, actually, AFCOOP has done a couple of really great eco-processing workshops.
Wow.
And if you're interested, look into the Handmade Film Collective, which is here. They are doing really, really great. I've actually done a couple of the eco-processing workshops. Super exciting. Yeah, Handmade Film Collective. Just check out their website. I think I saw it. Yes, thank you.
And just while the microphone's going to him, the other thing is the Canada Council has a new and emerging artist grant. And when I was on the jury, there were like 95 applications that me and the other jurors went through. And a lot of them were people just, you have whatever. A lot of people were applying to write novels, for example, or write memoirs or stuff. But they had a whole career in another whatever realm. Sometimes not even the arts. And so it can be you're entering a new discipline. So that's something for people who are starting off.
You were mentioning eco-processing, and it just reminds me that a few years ago I saw an exhibit of black and white still street photographs that were really terrific. And it turned out that the guy developed the film, this is still, in coffee.
Yes.
And I got very excited about it, and I went out and got a whole bunch of instant coffee and some vitamin C, ascorbic acid and this kind of stuff, and haven't quite gotten, and 10 rolls of film, haven't quite gotten around to doing anything with it yet, but maybe I will. But what I wanted to mention or ask is, it was Dawson City, was it not, that they dug up a bunch of old movies?
Mm-hmm.
So maybe these movies, your uncompleted movies that you've stashed in your shed, will show up in 100 years' time.
Yeah, and they'll analyze it and they'll figure, oh, this is the coming of age ritual that all Canadians had with their children back at the turn of the century.
It's like the golden
Yeah.
before.
Yeah.
This is not exactly about film, Lulu, but I know that you have another life outside of film, which is mainly keeping yourself going between films. So, would you like to talk about what your ordinary days are like? It seemed to me when I was when I visited you, chopping wood was a major thing.
I realize I'm not chopping wood anymore. I'm waiting for big hunky guys to come by, and women. Actually, the last person who chopped was a woman. But yeah, I sucker somebody else into that now. But I'm writing a lot now. And I have a collection of short stories that's coming out a year from now. And I'm working on a novel. What happened was that what motivated me was that I got really frustrated because, so many people, we have ideas for feature films and we write a screenplay for a movie. And then 1 in 100 or 1 in 200, I have no idea what the numbers are, actually succeeds in getting the financing in order to be made into a movie. And in my 40-odd year career, I've succeeded in making 2 movies, but I've got 5 other scripts, screenplays that were developed with Telefilm Canada, with Screen Nova Scotia. All these agencies put money into me writing and being able to develop it with story editors, and then they're just sitting on the shelves. So that was why I felt I can make them into novels. So I've just got to get another 20 years of life and I'll be able to do it all.
You got it, honey.
Okay, well, here's wishing you another 20 years.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing all this with us.
Thank you so much. I also have to thank Silouan Daly and Kenny Lewis and Perry McFarlane, as well as you, Shannon, for and everyone else, all of you who are filming. And thank you.